Would you like to know how I created this multi-block woodcut print of Lake Topol? I'm Sally-Ann Davies, a fine art printmaker based in Topol, New Zealand. The woodcut print beneath the surface was created using these 4 blocks, and I'd like to tell you now how each one was created. So initially I started off with the key block, which is the drawing block. So I drew the design, my landscape, onto the block and then carved everything out. So I'm just left with all the fine lines in the prints. There were the little islands in the foreground as well. Then, using a reverse transfer technique, which is explained at a later date, I transferred it onto each block that I needed. This helps with the registration when I'm printing and taking it through the press. The first textured block I created was using good old tissue paper. So I scrunched it up into the areas I wanted with glue, and then I sealed it using watered down PVA glue, and that just captures all the little lines. I inked it up using an intaglio technique by rubbing ink into the grooves, and then I used a brayer to kiss the surface of it, and that gives the contrast in the colours. The second plate was created using Coarse Textured Gel. So I applied it where I wanted the coarseness of the hills to go using an intaglio technique, rub the ink in so I capture every little groove, and then using a brayer I kiss the surface of the ridges to give that contrast in colour again. And the final textured plate, I used some wallpaper, very fine textured wallpaper that I found in the bargain bin at our local decorating store. Perfect, and now I've got heaps of it, so you're probably going to see a few more prints with rocks in them. Using the taglio technique again, rubbing the ink in so it captures all the fine details in the rocks, and then the brayer rolled over the top to give a contrast in the colours, which added the highlights to the rocks. And finally I used the key block again to tie it all together. So I carved out the little islands in the foreground. By doing that, enabled me to print it in one go, the 2 colours that is. So the bluey grey lines in the mountains of the Tongariro National Park, and then the transparent blue to give that transparency of being able to see through the water of Lake Topol. Well, I hope that gave you a little bit more insight into how I created my woodcut print beneath the surface. If you'd like to know more about my art and my workshops, check out my website, sallyandavies.com.